Go.
1460 WVOX.
Just you, just me. We'll find a cozy spot to cuddle and coo.
Welcome to the WVOX Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. In this very posh cabaret room, there is no cover charge. There is no minimum. There's no need to feed the meter or search for parking. Our mission is to share this amazing music from the Great American Songbook. As Elliot Ames, the cabaret kid, says, this is music that speaks to the power of love, music that speaks so eloquently of the human condition, songs that say, I need you, I want you, I love you. My name is Alex Leonard, and assisting today, helping to make the music run smoothly, is the indispensable Gerald Bell. Thank you, Gerald. A little later on in the show, I'll be chatting with Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman as we discuss the music, nightlife, and culture scene in Buffalo, New York. Mary has a lifelong history and commitment to sharing stories of the talent and personalities of the second largest city in the state of New York. Howard, an entrepreneur and musician, is creator and host of LoungeACADEMY, which has become a very popular and long-running cabaret experience, currently running and live streaming weekly in the Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel. Now, there is so much musical talent that has come out of Buffalo, New York. Saxophonist Grover Washington Jr., drummer Mel Lewis, organist Ronnie Foster, composers like Harold Arlen and David Shire. Clint Holmes grew up in Buffalo, New York. Drummer Frankie Dunlop is a Buffalo native who worked with a remarkable array of jazz performers, Lena Horne, Duke Ellington, Maynard Ferguson, as well as many record dates with Thelonious Monk. Frankie and his piano-playing brother Boyd Lee Dunlap were inducted into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame back in 2012. So let's listen now to this Buffalo native, Frankie Dunlap, with Mose Allison on vocals, singing about his swinging machine.
Are you uninspired? If you're bored, you just can't afford to miss out on the scene. Well, I unveil my little swing machine. I worked years through sweat and tears. I made tests trying to find the best. You'll know just what I mean when I turn on my little swing machine. Sometimes it gets a little hard to start. Sometimes I think it's going to come apart. But when it's working just like a charm, it keeps me from going back to the farm. So look neat, but don't you drag your feet. Just turn loose, have a drink of juice. You'll know just what I mean when I turn on my little swing machine. Machine ain't working right. I walk the floor, can't sleep at night. But when it really starts to percolate, I feel like I'm the master of my fate. Take a tip, don't be over hip. Just reach out, see what it's all about. You know it's much more felt than seen. I'm talking about my little swinging machine.
Swingin' Machine. That's Mose Allison on vocal. By the way, Jimmy Nepper, a dear friend, playing trombone. And that's Buffalo native Frankie Dunlap performing on the drums. It's all Buffalo we are celebrating here on today's edition of the Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. Jack Yellen was a composer from Buffalo, New York, a member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Yellen wrote the lyrics to the great Tin Pan Alley standards, Happy Days Are Here Again, and Ain't She Sweet. This next tune on the Golden Apple Cabaret tells the story of the femme fatale from Savannah, Georgia. Ella Fitzgerald on vocals. Let's hear the story of hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah.
In old Savannah, I said, Savannah, the weather there is nice and warm. The climate's of the southern brand. But here's what I don't understand. They've got a gal there, a pretty gal there, who's colder than an Arctic storm. Got a heart just like a stone. Even nice men leave her alone. They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Leather is tough, but Hannah's heart is tougher. She's a gal who loves to see men suffer, to tease them and thrill them, to torture and kill them is her delight, they say. I saw her at the seashore with a great big pan. There was Hannah pouring water on a drowning man. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, G.A. They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Talk of your cold, refrigerating mamas, brother, she's a polar bear's pajamas. To tease him and thrill him, to torture and kill him is her delight, they say. An evening spent with Hannah sitting on your knees is like traveling through Alaska in your PPTs. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, G.A. Can you imagine a woman as cold as Hannah? She's got the right name, the vamp of Savannah. Anytime a woman can take a great big pan, start pouring water on a drowning man. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, G.A. Ooh, she's sweet as sour milk.
Ella Fitzgerald. The lyrics of that song, Hard-Hearted Hannah, were written by Jackie Yellen, a native of the great city of Buffalo, New York. All the music today has a connection to New York State's second largest city. A little later on in the show, my guests will be Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman. We will be talking about the fine musical talent that has come out of Buffalo. Some names are world-renowned, like Harold Arlen, but there are also names such as Dodo, Greene, Jackie Jacko, and Tinney, all who deserve our attention, and we'll be chatting about them and listening to them as well. Ray Henderson is another composer born in Buffalo who also dates back to the time of Tin Pan Alley. Henderson wrote classic songs such as Bye Bye Blackbird, 5'2", The Birth of the Blues, and many, many more. In this next song, Lulu is a flapper, and Bobby Short tells us, don't bring Lulu, I'll bring her myself.
Wrote little Johnny White, but with this invitation there is a stipulation. When you attend this party, you'll all be treated right. But there's a wild and woolly woman you boys can't invite. Now you can bring Pearl, she's a darn nice girl, but don't bring Lulu. You can bring Rose with a turned up nose, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu always always wants to do what we boys don't want her to. When she struts her stuff around, London Bridge is falling down. You can bring cake or porterhouse steak, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu gets blue when she goes cuckoo like the clock upon the shelf. She's the kind of a smarty who breaks up every party. Holla about Lulu, don't bring Lulu, she'll come here herself. We all went to the party, a real high-toned affair. And then along came Lulu, as wild as any Zulu. She started into Charleston, and how the boys did stare. But when she did the hula hula, then she got the air. Don't bring Lulu. You can bring Tess with her no and her yes, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu has the reddest hair, redder here and redder there. How can we boys keep our head? Bulls go wild when they see red. You can bring peas and colors and cheese. Don't bring Lulu. Give her 2 beers, she tears 4 tears and throws cups off the shelf. When she loves the feeling, the boys all hit the ceiling. Holla Lulu. Don't bring Lulu. 'Cause I'll bring her myself.
While the relatives are yakking, get your bags and do your packing, and away we'll go. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. To Niagara in a sleeper, there's no honeymoon that's cheaper, and the train goes slow. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. Someday the stork may pay a visit and leave a little souvenir, just a little cute, what is it? But we'll discuss that later, dear. For a little silver quarter, we can have the Pullman porter turn the lights down low. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. There's no honeymoon that's cheaper, and the train goes slow. Off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. Someday the stork may pay us a visit and leave a little, little, tiny little souvenir. Just a little cute. What is it? Who does he look like? But we'll discuss that later, dear. For a little silver quarter, we can have the Pullman porter turn the lights down low. Off we're gonna shuffle, off we're gonna shuffle, off we're gonna shuffle, off to Buffalo.
The McGuire sisters with the Harry Warren Al Dubin classic Shuffle Off to Buffalo, written for the 1933 movie musical 42nd Street. Today we are listening to all things Buffalo on the Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. My name is Alex Leonard, and the Cabaret is open, live streaming at WVOX.com or over the airwaves in New York City at WVOX 1460 on your AM dial. My guests today hail from the great city of Buffalo, New York. Mary Kunz Goldman has worked as an artist, sketching scenes of Buffalo in pen and ink. Also a newspaper reporter and music critic. She worked at the Buffalo News for over 20 years, and she has a lifelong history and commitment to sharing stories of the talent and personalities of the second largest city in the state of New York. Her husband, Harold Goldman. Where do we begin, Mary, with Howard? I guess entrepreneur is a good description.
Yes, right.
I think that's a good description. Truly a Renaissance man. Yes. He is always up for a challenge and in the process of discovery. Howard is also a pianist and vocalist and creator and host of LoungeACADEMY in Buffalo, New York. What began as informal Monday night jam sessions in their home led to the creation of this popular and long-running cabaret experience that is currently running and live-streamed weekly in the beautiful Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel. There is so much talent, so many names to address today, and I'd like to start with you, Mary, and your connection to Dorothea Hawkins Greene.
Isn't that a beautiful name?
Yeah, a very important part of Buffalo music history. She recorded for Blue Note Records and appeared at Carnegie Hall. And, Mary, you wrote an article about her, and I believe your quote was, "When Dodo Greene sings, people listen, people respond to her, especially musicians." Can you talk about your connection with Dodo?
Well, I met her the way a lot of Buffalonians met her was she would sing at the Anchor Bar, which is one of the few places in Buffalo you would call a real tourist place where people come because it was the birthplace, so the story goes, of the chicken wing. So everyone goes to the Anchor Bar, they still do, and the Anchor Bar is beautiful. It has 1940s ambiance, which is rare to find, and Dodo was the singer there for years, and I would go on, she sang Friday and Saturday nights, and it was really something to hear and to experience. And a lot of musicians would go there after their gigs and stuff. And Dodo, when I interviewed her, she was telling me she had been friends with Dinah Washington. Her singing was very reminiscent of Dinah Washington, too. She had that very earthy but beautiful sound.
Mary,
musicians loved to accompany her and back her up. And she treated them really funny.
Mary, if I can interrupt for just a second, we're getting a bad echo. Wondering if maybe you can go into the other room because I know we're on a couple of lines, but it might be being picked up by Howard's phone.
I'll go into the other room. Yes. So Dodo had a really. I'm walking as I'm talking here. She had a. Oh yeah, now it's better.
Yes, thank you.
She had a real funny, like down in the alley way with people, which was really. I mean. Sometimes you didn't know whether to die listening to her because it was so funny. She had a saxophonist there named Bilal Abdullah. He still plays around town, Bilal, a very dapper type, played the very upstanding, good-looking guy, was playing the saxophone. And Dodo would do something she called the Bilal Blues. And it had lyrics that went, just old-time blues lyrics. Yeah, I knew he didn't love me when he threw me on his nasty bed. And she'd sing that, and she'd go, he looked an awful lot like Bilal here. And Bilal told me, because I asked him how he took it, he said, every time she does that, I die 1,000 deaths. But he loved Dodo. Everybody loved it. And she just relaxed everyone. She was so much fun. And really sort of an old school performer, whom you don't see that type very often anymore. Kind of no vanity, it would just get out there and entertain, whatever it took. It was really, really fun. And so that's how I got to know her. Oh, and at the end of the night, the cooks and everybody would come out and dance from the backstage. You felt as if you were back in the 1930s or 40s.
Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful. And it's so nice to know that Blue Note released a CD of her album, My Hour in Need. I think that's maybe when you had written about her.
Yes, that was a big deal for all of us. I remember the jazz critic, Jeff Simon, at the paper, great, huge knowledge of jazz he had. And he brought that over to my desk, and he said, look, it's actually happened. That was a great thing for Dodo, too, because she got some appreciation while she was alive. And that's a wonderful thing, instead of waiting until she's passed on.
Beautiful. Well, let's listen to a cut from that album. The album, again, is My Hour in Need. Let's listen to Dodo Greene.
And Quebec was on it, right? Yeah, she did that with,
The great Quebec.
I love that you're playing that. Yes.
And Quebec never gets, well, he does get credit, but he should get more credit because we always think Stan gets with playing on the bossa novas. But Quebec did so many great jazz bossa nova albums back in the day. So, yes.
It's great to hear you say that.
Yeah, Quebec on saxophone. This is Dodo Greene, and she has jazz in my soul.
I'm walking to meet my maker. The sweet Lord above is my goal. Yes, I'm gonna meet my maker, 'cause I got jazz in my soul. Temptation is all around me, but I got an ace in the hole. I stick to the straight and narrow, 'cause I got jazz in my soul. I'll cross right over the bridge there. I won't have to pay any toll. No, I'll never take no detours, not with that jazz in my soul. I'll dance up that glorious staircase and hear the drums start to roll. They'll lay down that golden carpet, 'cause I got jazz in my soul. That jazz in my soul. Oh yes, at last when my journey is over, they'll look over that heavenly scroll and find my name at the top there, 'cause I got jazz in my soul. Oh yeah, jazz in my soul. Ooh, in my soul. Ooh, in my soul.
Dodo Greene, Jazz in My Soul, from her album My Hour in Need. Blue Note has released a CD of that album. We are speaking with Mary Kunz Goldman and Howard Goldman from Buffalo, New York. Howard, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a pianist named Jackie Jacko. I know he was a dear friend of yours and a very important musical influence in your life. In fact, the piano now that you're playing on in the Hyatt Regency, I see, belonged to, was the one that Jackie used to play on. Can you share some of your memories of Jackie?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Jacko was a really big deal in Buffalo, and he really kind of trademarked what lounge piano is here, in piano bar. He was the ultimate. He was written up, not by Mary, by others, as the ultimate glad-hander and schmoozer, which I've, almost hoping I can put on my business card someday. But he was great. Mary could tell you more about his history, but as far as his influence on me, he took me under his wing, really strangely, because I was the least likely to for him to take an interest in musically, but he did, and he basically taught me the act. He came over to my place, which was right near the Hyatt where he was playing, which is where I'm playing now, and he spent 3 years coming over once a week after one of his four nights a week at the Hyatt. He didn't miss a week for 3 years, coming over and just on, he wouldn't accept anything for it. He just wanted to encourage me to learn how to sing and play the piano at the same time. Or probably would have been happy if I did one or the other, successfully. But he stuck with it along with our mutual friend Dave Granville. They just double teamed me every week and just beat me up, and I videoed a lot of it. And we started calling it Lounge Academy because that's what it was. They were teaching me the ropes, and Jacko had this crazy notion that, of course, I had no problem rolling with it because who wouldn't? He wanted me to take over for him because he was getting closer to 90. And it was really a crazy notion. And, even at the time, but just, what a great excuse to spend time with Jackie Jacko. Who wouldn't want to? He didn't have any other students. And nobody at that time, he'd been at the Hyatt at E.B. Greene's for 20 years playing 4 nights a week. And nobody had ever filled in for him if he missed a night. And after 3 years of training me, he got sick for a month and a half, and I was afraid to even go in and do it. But the restaurant and Jacko told me to give it a try, and they said you're ready enough, and it was the most terrifying thing. It was also probably the most exciting, especially the first night, exciting moment of my life. Definitely a bucket list item. Like somebody wanting to climb a certain mountain or jump out of a plane or doing whatever. Being behind the piano where Jackie Jacko sits was just.
Before we turn it over to Mary, I want to mention that Jackie Jacko, the last name is spelled professionally Jacko, but I understand it's really Italian, Giaccio, which would be Jacko in Italian. Yes,
and he was in the phone book. You could look him up in the phone book under that name and call him.
Under his actual name. And I know that he did work many years in Buffalo, but he also worked, and Mary, maybe you could speak to more of this, the Sahara in Vegas, Harrah's in Reno. He toured Hawaii, and then returned to Buffalo, where he was for many, many years.
Yes, he was very proud of that, and we are too. I mean, he called that era the era of the great lounges, and he would go around and he met a lot of the stars of the day. He met Marlene Dietrich. He knew some of these people, and there was a funny story he told me about Marlene Dietrich past the lounge where he was playing in Vegas, and Jacko called over to her, and she called over to him. She goes, "Jacko, I'm dead. It's really late." I mean, it was just, they had this relationship. Another time he was playing the piano, and Richard Nixon sat down on the piano bench with him. He just knew these people, and Jacko would commiserate. Apparently, Richard Nixon commiserated about whatever situation he was in at the time. It was not Watergate; it was before that. And Jacko listened, and he knew. Oh, and you could just write a book about just all the celebrities. He had opinions on all of them too, but just had this. Tremendous. They all had their songs and stuff. And in Buffalo, when Jacko was playing, everybody he'd assign you a song. You would have a song. My song was the theme from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde, and he got the harmonies just right. I mean, those harmonies in Tristan are crazy, and he got that right. And someone else had Moon River. It was beautiful. He'd play your song when you walked in. And a lot of people in Buffalo remember him from a restaurant called The Cloister. That apparently it was very grand, and people would come down the stairs, and Jacko would greet them. Just loved that era of elegance, and his music suggested that. Kind of brought it to life.
And he worked for decades with a drummer named Joe Peters, who I read he quoted as saying, Jackie said, was his partner in life and music. Yes, they were very And Joe Peters used to play drums with him at the Hyatt. And I believe until he got budgeted out, the Hyatt decided that they wanted to put tables. The drums did take up a lot of room, but we were all upset about that. But then, we went forward, and Jacko. Well, let's listen to this sampler. This is from an album that I've not been able to find on CD. I hope that it's somewhere, or maybe somewhere we could find it, because I'd like to play this in future shows here on the Golden Apple Cabaret. But there was an album that I think they both did, right? Like Wow, aren't they both on that album?
Yes.
So let's listen now.
Yeah, that's a great album. Jacko's voice, I have to tell you, too, did not change an awful lot over the years. He still sounds, when I hear that Like Wow album, he sounded like that. In the years later that we know, until recently, until when he died, he really had that same voice.
because you can hear on this album and this little sampler we're going to listen to what a strong voice, strong personality. I could just imagine what a performer and what energy he must have brought to that
Very
room.
strong, yes. Also a cool repertoire, an unusual repertoire that would take movie themes and stuff too. He would do movie themes. One thing he would do would be the theme from Somewhere in Time he would do, and a lot of people loved that movie, and they, want to talk to him about time travel and stuff. And then he would do the theme from The Thornbirds, just things over the years that he had loved himself, music from these different miniseries. And I love that. I love when you hear a pianist who can do all kinds of things like that, The way, as I told you, he would play Tristan for me. He would play classical themes, and he would play Tchaikovsky. He had a great ear where he could do these harmonies out of his head, which is amazing, to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, let's listen now to Jackie Jacko, a sampler from his album, Like Wow.
Ba-boo-ba-boo-ba. Ba-boo-ba-boo-ba-boo-ba-boo-ba. Nights and stars above that shine so bright, the mystery of their fading lights that shines upon our caravan. I don't care what the weatherman says when the weatherman says it's raining. Day in, day out, same old hoodoo follows me about. Same old pounding in my heart whenever I think of you. And baby, I think of you day in and day out, day out, day in. I needn't tell you how my days begin. When I awake with a tingle. One possibility in view, that possibility may be seeing you. Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree, and I feel like I'm clinging to a cloud. I can't understand, I get misty holding your hand. Walk my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play. Or it might be the sound of your hello, that music I hear. I get misty the moment you're near.
We are listening to the music of entertainers, performers, musicians that are connected to Buffalo, New York. We have two wonderful guests with us. We have Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman. Their websites, by the way, are howardgoldman.com and Mary, Kunz Goldman.com, if you want to look them up and see what they're up to. In fact, Mary, you were talking before about his ability, Jackie Jacko, that is, to play classical music as much as jazz music as well, and Tristan and Isolde, you mentioned. But you are also quite an accomplished pianist yourself. I understand you entered the first Van Cliburn piano competition.
Yeah, that's actually when I met Howard. I met Howard out in a jazz club when we were listening to Tinney, and it was the day I had found I was accepted into this competition. And so I was talking about piano. I was really excited. And whoever, and then I ended up, Howard was playing the piano, and we thought we'd get together and practice and do different things. Yeah, and then.
And you're also working on a book
I
about
got to meet Van Cliburn and be at his house and stuff. It was really fun. It was a great, talk about a big figure in music. Legendary Americana, in addition to being a great pianist, just Americana like a few people are. So I play the piano. I play a lot of Beethoven and Mozart. I love the I love the Germanic classical music.
Can you tell me about Leonard Panario? I believe you're working on a
he was a fantastic pianist. Buffalo, we've produced some offbeat kind of things. It's nice that you're talking about that. And Leonard I met him when I was on the job as the Buffalo News' classical music critic, and this was in 2007. He was 83, and he was really dying. He had Parkinson's disease at the time, but I went to California and took down his memoirs, which I'm trying to wrap up now. But anyhow, a wonderful pianist too. And it's funny that we're talking about these people whom we've been discussing, like Jacko and Dodo Greene, and they're different, how versatile they are. And Panario had been in the war, in World War II, and would go out and play boogie-woogie. I mean, he was a tremendous, super virtuoso pianist, would play Rachmaninoff, and he had a huge career going. At the time I should have just told you, he spent his childhood in Buffalo, and then he lived in L.A. after he was 10 or 12. They moved. But yeah, he had a big career going by the time he got drafted into World War II. He was booked to play with the Chicago Symphony, all these big orchestras, and then all that kind of had to go by the wayside because he went into the Army. But God love him, he's playing the boogie-woogie, he's playing at nightclubs that the soldiers set up. I mean, the guy made the most of everything, and then he developed this really iron constitution because of that, and he just toured his whole life. And I think I would say he was the last concert pianist to make his living on the road, a real old-fashioned virtuoso. Mm-hmm. So I was very proud to have known him, and Buffalo can be very proud of him. He was a member of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. That's why he came back, or he flew back in the last year of his life to say hello to Buffalo again and to take this award. Wonderful, wonderful man.
Now, Mary, you have this background in classical piano. I don't know, Howard, do you share the same background in classical?
Well, a little bit. I took classical starting out, like most people do, and then later on I took some technique from Mary's teacher because he came up with an interesting technique course and stuff, and I stuck with that till I was working on Beethoven's Opus 13 when he fired me as a student. So I held on pretty long, considering.
Because the style that
the
style that I know that you play is what you do at LoungeACADEMY. So can you describe LoungeACADEmy, how that came about and what's going on with it now? And it's very popular there, and a lot of great Guy Bolari, I know, is a legendary cabaret talent.
Yes,
a lot of people come to celebrate there at LoungeACADEmy. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, LoungeACADEmy started out actually about 12 years before we named it LoungeACADEmy, when Jackie Jacko got involved. It started out with when Peggy Farrell and Mary decided to have a canning night on Monday nights. Now, Peggy Farrell is a great jazz singer.
And I have to ask you, a canning night is?
Canning fruits and vegetables in the kitchen.
I don't know. Maybe this is a Buffalo thing, or I haven't lived a life.
No, just canning.
Around it enough.
Yeah, old-fashioned canning. So, Mary's brother George and Gary Marino. This was before Ari Silverstein came onto the scene. We actually, Ari Silverstein, jazz, legend in New York City.
Yeah, which, by the way,
it was gestated in our living room here.
Yeah, by the way, I want to have Ari on the show, and he told me to contact his attorney, Bernie. But since you know him personally,
I've dealt with him.
Maybe you could put in a good word for me, and I could get him to play some.
It won't help.
Choices.
Yeah, it won't help, but he's a tough attorney.
So you have these canning nights, and then it turns into a music night.
Well, it started out as it wasn't going to have anything to do with music, right? But we decided, George Kunz, her brother, and I, and Gary Marino, we decided, let's jam in the living room on the Steinway. Let's entertain each other, and we'll see if we can get, since it's Al Tinney's home alone, because Peggy's over here with Mary, maybe we could get Al Tinney over and have some more time with him. He's a legendary bebop pioneer, right? So it did not work, although he was over here a lot for special events and holidays and New Year's Eve and stuff too, when he got too old to book gigs on New Year's because he was just worried that the schedule might not be practical. But at that time, that was the idea. So it was kind of like making, they say, stone soup. You throw a piece of stone in, and then everybody brings real food and throws it in, and it actually turns into soup eventually. Everybody throws in carrots and ducks and chickens and things. So that's how it started. We're hoping we'd attract Al Tinney, but he never came on Monday nights. But it turned into a jam that went on for years and years. And, hundreds of people came through here, and, some every week, some every other week, some once a year, just kind of like Lounge Academy is. And it was just great. And then Chuck Mancuso, the professor of music at Buff State University, who Ari Silverstein is his Frankenstein monster. He built Ari. And he dropped him off, as Ari says, he dropped him off at our doorstep. And then several weeks later, he dropped off Guy Balleri. And what a gift that was. Guy Balleri is the real deal. He's just fantastic.
And Lounge Academy, I know it's had a few different houses at the Statler, at the Old House, but right now it's being housed at the Hyatt Regency in Buffalo, New York on Friday night. I see it's live on Facebook. You live stream the event, but people, of course, if they're in Buffalo or near Buffalo or nowhere near Buffalo, drive to Buffalo and sit and spend some time with Harold Goldman at the piano. But you mentioned a couple names there, Al Tinney and Peggy Farrell. Al Tinney, from what I understand, was a child. It started out as a child actor, was in the original production of Porgy and Bess back in 1935, and rather a study in contrast to the personality of Dodo Greene that Mary was talking about earlier, although they were friends. And he became, I know Al Tinney became a bebop pianist working alongside Charlie Parker and led the house band at Monroe's Uptown House in Harlem in the early 40s. And I know, Mary, you had an opportunity to know him well, and you too, Howard, and even to interview him. It's not so hard to find. It's not so easy to find recordings. But what I'd like to do is let's get to the music now. Peggy Farrell was a dear friend and also a vocalist that worked with Al Tinney. So let's listen to this record now.
Singing. And then she's wonderful.
Then we'll talk a little bit more about them afterwards. So you're listening to the Golden Apple Cabaret. Here, Yours is the Love with Al Tinney and Peggy Farrell.
Yours is the love I have waited for, one that I'll treasure forevermore. Yours is the love that I know will last, my present, my future, then my past. Fooled many times by the games people play, by love that won't last, only fade away. Then you came along and you changed the rules. You chased my blues away. How great are the hours I spent with you. How grand just to know you love me too. Your love is so tender, and one thing more, yours is the love I have waited for.
so tender, and one thing more. Yours is the love I have waited for. Yours is the love I have waited for.
Peggy Farrell on vocals there with Al Tinney on the piano. We're speaking with Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman, residents of Buffalo, New York. Mary, can you tell us a little bit about your encounter with Al Tinney, the pianist?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me?
Sure, I can hear you fine. I was asking about Al.
Yeah, Al was just, he was an amazing pianist and very, very nice to everyone in Buffalo as far as mentoring pianists. Just very great to you, anybody. You know, you could reach out to him, go over to him after a show, he'd talk to you. And one thing that I loved about Al Tinney, I saw right away before I had my job at the news, I went and saw him, and I noticed he was playing a lot of classical references. I went up to him afterwards and said, Al, you played the Mozart D minor fantasy for Yesterdays. And he did. It would be in D minor. He would play the song in D minor, and he led into it with this beautiful Mozart piece that is not exactly really well known. So you know that Al, I mean, not among the general, I mean, people don't know it usually. And Al played that, and I always remember that. And he started laughing because he loved that I knew it. He was just extremely.
And I think the lack of recordings is not so much his ability, obviously, but I think a lot of musicians back in those days, they were just working, not necessarily recording all the time. But you look at the names he worked with and the experience you had with him and the people he knew, it's quite a remarkable career.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me, too. There was somebody, I will never remember who this was, but some Buffalonian, a talented kid, was going to Berkeley or one of those great music schools, and he was something like 22. Howard, you probably remember this. Then Al Tinney said, I was working when I was 22.
You're right. Exactly.
Yes, right. He always was working, and he didn't promote himself. He just kind of, and actually when he moved to Buffalo, he told me this for the story, Alex.
You were selling shoes by then.
What?
I said Al Tinney said he was selling shoes by the time.
Yes, he was selling shoes when he came to Buffalo, and I couldn't seem to get to the bottom of the story, and it was bothering me. And and I said, Al, you mean you really were ready to give it all up? I guess when he was in New York, he was really distressed by a lot of the drug culture that was going on in the music, the bop community and stuff in New York, the bop community, among these musicians. And knowing Al, when I got to know him better, I realized that this is kind of, it seems genuine. I mean, that I think he really was. And he married a girl from Buffalo then, and then that's why he came to Buffalo. And he really had it in his head that he was just going to give up the music and just raise his kids in Buffalo, and he was selling shoes. Right. And this is where it was bothering me when I was talking to him, because I was going, Al, you couldn't give it up. You couldn't give. No, but I really think he did, and he thought he was going to. And then people from, the Buffalo music community kind of found out about him and started.
But as far as having different career paths, whether it's selling shoes or music, I think, Howard, you would appreciate this, being the commissioner of the Buffalo Department of Coffee and Donuts, and also the master mechanic at Buffalo, and all the many entrepreneurial things that you've been involved in. And we want to remind people it's Howard Goldman, HowardGoldman.com. All of Mary's is linked to there. Lounge Academy is linked to there. So if you're going to Buffalo, you want to learn more about what's going on in Buffalo and all the great history, there's tremendous links up there, a lot of recordings that they put together through the years. So it's really worth a visit. Another performer, you mentioned Leonard Panario a little earlier, that had grown up in Buffalo and then moved. There's another performer named Joni Summers, who was a singer and a vocalist and a TV film and actress, and even a jingle singer, and again, a Buffalo native. She very early on moved away from Buffalo, but when she was 10 years old, she appeared on Buffalo TV and won the amateur talent contest, and one thing led to another, and she had a big pop hit tune in 1962 called Johnny Get Angry. But in a 2001 interview I read that she said 20 albums she did with some of the greatest names in jazz, and she's eternally linked with this pop song called Johnny Get Angry. But before we go, let's listen to a little bit of Joni Summers and I Concentrate on You.
whenever skies look gray to me and trouble begins to brew. Whenever the winter winds become too strong, I concentrate on you. When fortune cries, nay, nay to me, and people declare you're through. Whenever the blues become my only song, I concentrate on you, on your smile, so sweet, so tender. When at first your kiss I decline, the light in your eyes when I surrender, and once again our arms intertwine. And so when wise men say to me that love's young dream never comes true, to prove that even wise men can be wrong, I concentrate on you. I concentrate, oh, concentrate on you.
That's Joni Summers here at the Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. My name is Alex Leonard, and we've been listening and talking about Buffalo, New York, the entertainers and performers, along with Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman here. Again, the website for them is howardgoldman.com. And you're live streaming, right, your Friday nights at the Buffalo Hyatt at 5 p.m. And I think there's a 4-camera live stream going on. I mean, this is exciting.
It's a 4-camera live stream, and I wear all the hats. I actually run the stream, run the cameras and everything right from the piano keyboard.
Right. So turn it.
It's the theme in my mind for this thing, where it's going, is reality piano bar. Now, everybody in the place is an unwitting accomplice. They're the unwitting contestants on our reality show. And each week, I refine it a little more to where eventually it's going to all make sense. And there's the storylines of these fascinating people that are regulars. We call them the Lounge Cadets, and they call themselves Lounge Cadets, proudly and foolishly all at the same time. Their lives, you just couldn't make these things up. And this is what I want to bring out more and more as I'm able to, control the cameras and the microphone locations and the post-production editing too, because nobody, it also makes a good post show too. But when this is going on live, eventually I might have somebody producing the show or directing the show while it's going on, because it's got so much potential.
So I have a quick question for you. I started off the show today with "Shuffle Off to Buffalo." Every time I think of Buffalo, that's the song. That. Is there another Buffalo song that we don't know about, or is that the one?
The bill is making me want to show.
It sounds to me like that's the one. Well, I want to thank you so much, Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman, for being a guest.
Leonard. Thank you for visiting Lounge Academy.
I did, and I have to tell you, you're truly a special couple with your heart in the right place for people and for a great love of your hometown in Buffalo, New York.
Oh.
I remember when I came there and visited, you made me feel just so welcome and so dear, and I just felt very special. So you're wonderful people and a wonderful...
Well, the Lounge Cadets loved it.
Well, and I look
just an
forward.
example of how Alex Leonard researches his show prep. He actually flew to Buffalo to see it.
Yes, that was it. I'm sorry we couldn't include more of the great talent from Buffalo. Tony Scabetto, who was a wonderful songwriter, and there are just so many other names. But I'm glad we had this opportunity to begin to share the music and some of the remarkable talent that deserves our attention. Visit them at the Hyatt Regency Friday evenings in Buffalo, New York, live or on the web at howardgoldman.com at 5 p.m. When you are out on the town and you hear live music, take a moment to search out a manager or club owner. Let them know how much you enjoyed the performance. That's a reminder from our Cabaret raconteur, Elliot Ames. My name is Alex Leonard. I'd like to thank Gerald Bell for being at the controls today and allowing the music to run so smoothly. Also, Senior Vice President and Chief of Staff Don Stevens, our leader Bill O'Shaughnessy, and the entire crew of WVOX. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Mary. Look forward to seeing you and
Thank
talking.
you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, Mary.
Thank you, Howard.
This was such a pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
My pleasure. Thank you for stopping by the Golden Apple Cabaret. Till next week.
You better go because I like you much too much. I like you much too much.
AM 1460 WVOX New Rochelle. Go.
1460 WVOX.
Just you, just me. We'll find a cozy spot to cuddle and coo.
Welcome to the WVOX Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. In this very posh cabaret room, there is no cover charge. There is no minimum. There's no need to feed the meter or search for parking. Our mission is to share this amazing music from the Great American Songbook. As Elliot Ames, the cabaret kid, says, this is music that speaks to the power of love, music that speaks so eloquently of the human condition, songs that say, I need you, I want you, I love you. My name is Alex Leonard, and assisting today, helping to make the music run smoothly, is the indispensable Gerald Bell. Thank you, Gerald. A little later on in the show, I'll be chatting with Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman as we discuss the music, nightlife, and culture scene in Buffalo, New York. Mary has a lifelong history and commitment to sharing stories of the talent and personalities of the second largest city in the state of New York. Howard, an entrepreneur and musician, is creator and host of LoungeACADEMY, which has become a very popular and long-running cabaret experience, currently running and live streaming weekly in the Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel. Now, there is so much musical talent that has come out of Buffalo, New York. Saxophonist Grover Washington Jr., drummer Mel Lewis, organist Ronnie Foster, composers like Harold Arlen and David Shire. Clint Holmes grew up in Buffalo, New York. Drummer Frankie Dunlop is a Buffalo native who worked with a remarkable array of jazz performers, Lena Horne, Duke Ellington, Maynard Ferguson, as well as many record dates with Thelonious Monk. Frankie and his piano-playing brother Boyd Lee Dunlap were inducted into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame back in 2012. So let's listen now to this Buffalo native, Frankie Dunlap, with Mose Allison on vocals, singing about his swinging machine.
Are you uninspired? If you're bored, well, you just can't afford to miss out on the scene when I unveil my little swing machine. I worked years through sweat and tears. I made tests trying to find the best. You'll know just what I mean when I turn on my little swing machine. Sometimes it gets a little hard to start. Sometimes I think it's going to come apart. But when it's working just like a charm, it keeps me from going back to the farm. So look neat, but don't you drag drag your feet, just turn loose, have a drink of juice. You'll know just what I mean when I turn on my little swinging machine. Machine ain't working right. I walk the floor, can't sleep at night. But when it really starts to percolate, I feel like I'm the master of my fate. Take a tip, don't be over hip. Just reach out, see what it's all about. You know it's much more felt than seen. I'm talking about my little swinging machine.
Swingin' Machine. That's Mose Allison on vocal. By the way, Jimmy Nepper, a dear friend, playing trombone. And that's Buffalo native Frankie Dunlap performing on the drums. It's all Buffalo we are celebrating here on today's edition of the Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. Jack Yellen was a composer from Buffalo, New York, a member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Yellen wrote the lyrics to the great Tin Pan Alley standards, Happy Days Are Here Again, and Ain't She Sweet. This next tune on the Golden Apple Cabaret tells the story of the femme fatale from Savannah, Georgia. Ella Fitzgerald on vocals. Let's hear the story of hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah.
In old Savannah, I said Savannah, the weather there is nice and warm, the climate's of the southern brand. But here's what I don't understand. They've got a gal there, a pretty gal there, who's colder than an Arctic storm, got a heart just like a stone. Even Icemen leave her alone. They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Leather is tough, but Hannah's heart is tougher. She's a gal who loves to see men suffer, to tease them and thrill them, to torture and kill them is her delight, they say. I saw her at the seashore with a great big pan. There was Hannah pouring water on a drowning man. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Talk of your cold, refrigerating mamas, brother, she's a polar bear's pajamas, to tease him and thrill him, to torture and kill him is her delight, they say. An evening spent with Hannah sitting on your knees is like traveling through Alaska in your PVDs. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, Can you imagine a woman as cold as Hannah? She's got the right name, the vamp of Savannah. Anytime a woman can take a great big pan, start pouring water on a drowning man. She's hot-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah. Ooh, she's sweet as sour milk.
Ella Fitzgerald. The lyrics of that song, Hard-Hearted Hannah, were written by Jack Yellen, a native of the great city of Buffalo, New York. All the music today has a connection to New York State's second largest city. A little later on in the show, my guests will be Harold Goldman and Mary Kunz Goldman. We will be talking about the fine musical talent that has come out of Buffalo. Some names are world-renowned, like Harold Arlen, but there are also names such as Dodo, Greene, Jackie Jacko, and Tinney, all who deserve our attention, and we'll be chatting about them and listening to them as well. Ray Henderson is another composer born in Buffalo who also dates back to the time of Tin Pan Alley. Henderson wrote classic songs such as Bye Bye Blackbird, 5'2", The Birth of the Blues, and many, many more. In this next song, Lulu is a flapper, and Bobby Short tells us, don't bring Lulu, I'll bring her myself.
Your presence is requested, wrote little Johnny White. But with this invitation, there is a stipulation. When you attend this party, you'll all be treated right. But there's a wild and woolly woman you boys can't invite. Now you can bring Pearl, she's a darn nice girl, but don't bring Lulu. You can bring Rose with a turned up nose, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu always wants to do what we boys don't want her to. When she struts her stuff around, London Bridge is falling down. You can bring cake or porterhouse steak, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu gets blue when she goes cuckoo like the clock upon the shelf. She's the kind of a smarty who breaks up every party. Holla about Lulu, don't bring Lulu, she'll come here herself. We all went to the party, a real high-toned affair. And then along came Lulu, as wild as any Zulu. She started into Charleston, and how the boys did stare. But when she did the hula hula, then she got the air. Don't bring Lulu. You can bring Tess with her no and her yes, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu has the reddest hair, redder here and redder there. How can we boys keep our head? Bulls go wild when they see red. You can bring peas and colors and cheese. Don't bring Lulu. Give her 2 beers, she tears poor tears and throws cups off the shelf. When she loves the feeling, the boys all hit the ceiling. Holla Lulu. Don't bring Lulu. I'll bring her myself.
While the relatives are yakking, get your bags and do your packing, and away we'll go. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. To Niagara in a sleeper, there's no honeymoon that's cheaper, and the train goes slow. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. Someday the stork may pay a visit and leave a little souvenir. Pullman porter, turn the lights down low. Ooh, off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. To Niagara in a sleeper, there's no honeymoon that's cheaper, and the train goes slow. Off we're gonna shuffle, shuffle, shuffle off to Buffalo. Someday the stork may pay us a visit and leave a little, little, tiny little souvenir. Just a little cute. What is it? Who does he look like? But we'll discuss that later, dear. For a little silver quarter, we can have the Pullman porter turn the lights down low. Off we're gonna shuffle, off we're gonna shuffle, off we're gonna shuffle, off to Buffalo.
The McGuire Sisters with the Harry Warren Al Dubin classic Shuffle Off to Buffalo, written for the 1933 movie musical 42nd Street. Today we are listening to All Things Buffalo on the Golden Apple Cabaret Hour. My name is Alex Leonard, and the Cabaret is open, live streaming at WVOX.com or over the airwaves in New York City at WVOX 1460 on your AM dial. My guests today hail from the great city of Buffalo, New York. Mary Kunz Goldman has worked as an artist, sketching scenes of Buffalo in pen and ink. Also a newspaper reporter and music critic. She worked at the Buffalo News for over 20 years, and she has a lifelong history and commitment to sharing stories of the talent and personalities of the second largest city in the state of New York. Her husband, Howard Goldman. Where do we begin, Mary, with Howard? I guess entrepreneur is a good description.
Yes, right.
I think that's a good description. Truly a Renaissance man.
Yes.
He is always up for a challenge and in the process of discovery. Howard is also a pianist and vocalist and creator and host of LoungeACADEMY in Buffalo, New York. What began as informal Monday night jam sessions in their home led to the creation of this popular and long-running cabaret experience that is currently running and live-streamed weekly in the beautiful Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel. There is so much talent, so many names to address today, and I'd like to start with you, Mary, and your connection to Dorothea Hawkins Greene.
Isn't that a beautiful name?
Yeah, a very important part of Buffalo music history. She recorded for Blue Note Records and appeared at Carnegie Hall. And, Mary, you wrote an article about her, and I believe your quote was, "When Dodo Greene sings, people listen, people respond to her, especially musicians." Can you talk about your connection with Dodo?
Well, I met her the way a lot of Buffalonians met her was she would sing at the Anchor Bar, which is one of the few places in Buffalo you would call a real tourist place where people come because it was the birthplace, so the story goes, of the chicken wing. So everyone goes to the Anchor Bar, they still do, and the Anchor Bar is beautiful. It has 1940s ambiance, which is rare to find, and Dodo was the singer there for years, and I would go on, she sang Friday and Saturday nights, and it was really something to hear and to experience. And a lot of musicians would go there after their